Let me see. Let me just say it like this. So he's interrogating the robot, and remember, so the robot kept saying like I didn't do it, but then the robot smashed the table and was like, oh okay, the robot smashed the table, and then not smashed, but he leaves a indent. He's like, that's anger. You ever seen anger before? And then he says, answer me, Canner. So Will's like, answer me, Canner. And so he calls like robots like canners. Like he just calls them like a can, or like, you know, to 10 machines, just like, so he calls a robot canners. So he said, answer me, Canner. Like that's his name for like any robot. If he's referring to a robot, he calls it a canner. So he's like, answer me, Canner. And the robot was like, my name is Sonny. Now, the reason I'm saying, so Will was like, so we're naming you now, okay? And so, a couple things. Remember, the robot refers to Dr. Lanning as father. That was one. When Will, which is Dale Spooner, went to talk to the hologram of Dr. Lanning, that was one of the, he says, he doesn't say it's good to see you, son, but he said something, son. Like he ends it with a son. So he says that. Then, what's the next little part? They're like, oh, so the robot was like, well, I thought it was happy. The robot said, now the robot does it like, Dr. Lennon killed himself. The robot says that. And he was like, I thought he was happy though. Maybe he's like, maybe it's something maybe he got mad at me. Was it something I did? So this is what the robots were saying. The robot's like, maybe he got mad at me. It wasn't something I did. And so then he goes and he says like, did I do something? And so, and of course, you know, Dale, the detective, Will Smith, is not able to really say something. So he's like, what you talking about? And he was like, maybe he was scared. Maybe he was scared. And so, again, Dale Spooner is like, scared of what? What could he possibly be scared of? So one, he's like, did I do something? Was he mad at me? And then he was like, maybe he was scared. And so Will's like, okay, scared of what? What are you talking about? What are you referring to? He was like, and then the robot says, well, if somebody asks you to do something, you're supposed to do it, right? Oh, because he was like, the robots also says that Dr. Lanning made him promises and asked him for a favor. So those were two other things. He was like, he made me promises and he asked me for a favor. And so these are other things the robot's saying. So the robot says that he was like, yo, did I do something? He was like, he killed himself. I thought he was happy. I didn't know that he wasn't happy. And then he's like, I didn't know he wasn't happy. And did I do something? Maybe he was scared. Then he made promises. He asked me for a favor. So he says all of that. And then, but then the people, they're like, all right, well, that's your 5 minutes or whatever, kind of sort of basically. And so then it cuts to Will, and so the detective and the sergeant, which is Will and the other guy, they're there, but then the richest guy in the world, the robotics guy, it's not Elon, all right? But the rich guy and like his team or whatever pop up with I guess like the DA, and they're like, all right, yeah, this is a gag order. A robot can't do this. You're not going to try the robot as a human, and then if anything, this comes off as like faulty machinery, which means that the machine has to get back to the USR. And he was like, he said something about it just, if anything, with a robot going like or whatever, it's like he didn't say faulty machinery, but it was on some like grounds of like it's a whatever type of incident, like it's a some type of incident or accident, whatever. Like it's like a robot. So he was like, you can't charge the robot with anything, and if anything, it's our property. So if it's our property, then it gets shipped back to us, and we just decommission it, and that's it. And he was like, this is a gag order. If you should, nobody in your department or anything should be talking about this or mentioning it. So he says that, does that. That's the rich guy. And then Will is, of course, like, yo, this is not okay. Like, we gotta get this out. This is some political stuff. Get the mayor, and this, that, there. And then the rich guy comes over and gives him some little things, like, from the mayor or whatever. So then there's that. And then they go to the next little part or whatever is Will being at, or Dale Spooner, Will being at the bar or whatever, and on the TV it's talking about, they're supposed to have like this huge rollout with the robots, but the co-founder, Dr. Lanning, the whole suicide thing, that's on the news, and they're talking about that. And then, so Will's at the bar, and then the robot comes in. Here's round two, and then Will's sergeant, he comes in to the bar. He sits next to him, and then so they're talking, and he was like, "What are the odds, right?" He was like, "Right guy for the right job, right guy for the right job. What are the odds?" And then he's like, "Whoa, what'd you say?" He's like, "Yeah, you're just um, you know, you've been looking for a bad robot, and then you looked under enough rocks and you found a bad robot. So you're the perfect guy to go do this job or whatever. So you're the right guy for the right job." And so it's one of them type of things. And then he's like, right guy for the right job. He says that to him. And then what else did he say to him? Basically, he gives like Will the go ahead to like continue the case or whatever. But of course, you continue on whatever grounds, and you just make sure that will. But he basically gives Will the go ahead to like keep going and go ahead and investigate, do whatever you got to do to find this, whatever. But Will was like, the robot was. He was like, it's a robot, it doesn't need a motive. But he was like, yo, this robot needed a motive. Oh, and then I think the other thing I mentioned, or I forgot to mention, was while Will was interrogating the the robot, which I guess we might refer to as Sonny, because he said his name is Sonny. While Will's interrogating the robot was like, he calls him Dale. He says Detective Spooner. And so Will was like, how do you know my name? That was another thing that happened. So as Dale Spooner is interrogating the robot, the robot does call him Detective Spooner. And so Will is like, how do you know my name? So they have the whole little drinks at the bar, and then he basically tells him like, yeah, you're the right combination, or your living testimony of when it's better to be lucky than to be smart, type of thing. Because everybody else kind of just trusts the robots, and he doesn't. So he found a bad robot and this and the third. But they do take the robot out, and so Will was like, this robot needs a motive. He was like, it was looking for a motive. And he was like, it's a robot, doesn't need. He's like, no, it was looking for one, And he was like, what are the odds that it would be me, the one for it to like go down with this whole case and whatnot? So now you're like extra motivated to like continue doing whatever research for this. And then the other part was, what does he say? Oh, as he's leaving, the sergeant was like, he calls out to him, and he's like, nice shoes. He says nice shoes. And he has on the Converse, the all black Converse, all stars. Nice shoes. That's all he says to him, but then, he leaves. So I had to just do that part before it gets to like another little part. I was like, because there was just a lot. Not a lot, but it was like for me to try to remember like intricacies of